The world is talking a lot about a loneliness epidemic. In the United States, more and more people admit that they feel isolated and disconnected from the people around them. But you're going in the opposite direction. You've started cutting certain people out of your life. And the thing that surprises you the most is how you feel afterward. Not guilt, not regret, just relief. A strangely peaceful feeling, as if something loud in your life has finally been switched off. Of course, most people don't see it that way. They call you cold. They say you're heartless. Some even think you're ruining your own relationships. But what if the truth is the exact opposite? What if disconnecting from certain people is actually a survival mechanism of the brain? Maybe you're not running away at all. Maybe you're simply starting to see things more clearly than before. So, what is really happening inside your mind? First, let's clear up one thing. You didn't wake up one morning and suddenly decide to turn your back on a few people. You woke up after many years. You used to be the one who picked up the phone at 3 a.m. You were the person who sat for hours listening to everyone's drama. You listened to them cry about their ex, complain about work, and vent about all the unfair things in their lives. You absorbed all that negative energy. You always tried to give advice. You always tried to help them sort things out. You were there for everyone. But then one day, when your own life hit a dead end, when you were the one who needed a shoulder, when you were completely exhausted, you looked around and realized there was no one there. Psychologists actually have a name for this. They call it compassion fatigue. At first, the term was used to describe the burnout experienced by healthcare workers and therapists, a condition where constantly empathizing and constantly dealing with other people's pain and problems leaves someone completely drained emotionally. Your energy tank didn't just run empty on its own. It was drained through hundreds, even thousands of moments when you put other people before yourself. After years of giving without conditions, your system finally shut down. And some people, like you, start choosing to step back. Not because you hate them, but because you need to save yourself. You need to restore the little bit of psychological energy you have left. But the story doesn't stop at exhaustion. Why does the feeling of being abandoned or used make you react so strongly that you want to cut someone off forever? That's when we need to look deeper at how your nervous system is working. It's trying to protect you. Think about the times you were in a relationship that constantly left you feeling drained. You kept listening, kept giving, kept trying to keep everything stable. But after every conversation, you felt like a piece of your energy had been taken away. After a while, you became so tired that just seeing that person's name pop up on your phone made you sigh. This isn't only an emotional issue. It's directly connected to how our nervous system works. According to many studies on nervous system regulation, our brain is constantly scanning the environment to answer one very simple question. Is this place safe or not? Dr. Stephen Porges, who developed polyvagal theory, suggests that the human nervous system has several different modes of operation. When the environment feels safe, we naturally connect, talk, and open up to others. But when the brain keeps receiving signals of stress, disappointment, or being taken advantage of, the nervous system can switch into a protective state. In this state, the body begins to do something very simple. It reduces interaction and pulls back to conserve energy. In simpler terms, your nervous system may be trying to say, "We've spent too much energy here. Maybe it's time to step back." So sometimes, when you distance yourself from certain people, it isn't an impulsive decision. It may actually be your nervous system trying to protect a very important resource, your emotional energy. But that leads to another question. Why is your nervous system more sensitive to these signals than other people's? We have to go back in time, back to where it all began, the roots in your childhood. For many people who tend to prefer silence and withdrawal, the way they handle relationships was actually programmed when they were very young. A child who didn't grow up surrounded by hugs or a deep sense of safety. That child grew up in an environment where conflict happened all the time. Doors slamming during arguments, heavy silence hanging in the air. A home where the atmosphere was always tense, where the emotions of the adults filled the entire space, while the child's feelings were pushed into a corner. ignored, or treated like a burden. If you were that child, what could you do to survive? You couldn't fight back. You were too small. So, you learned how to adapt. Children who grow up in environments like this often develop an unexpected survival skill, the ability to read the room. You learn to notice the smallest changes in an adult's facial expression. You could tell which footsteps meant someone was about to explode in anger. You learn to make yourself smaller, to stay quiet so you wouldn't trigger more chaos. You grew up too early. You became mature too early. Psychology actually has a clear explanation for this. According to attachment theory, developed by pioneering psychologists John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth, our early bonding experiences with caregivers create a kind of blueprint that strongly shapes how we build relationships later in life. When a child grows up in an unstable environment where their voice is constantly pushed aside to make room for the unpredictable emotions of adults, they slowly learn that safety is a rare luxury. To survive, instead of listening to their own inner world, they are forced to constantly scan the moods of the people around them. They learn to calm tension, try to keep everything stable, and sometimes place other people's needs ahead of their own. But over time, this type of adaptation can create a complicated loop, a deep desire for connection with others, mixed with a fear of being hurt or emotionally drained. That's why, as adults, many people tend to give a lot in relationships. But at some point, when they realize they are being drained, their self-protection instinct kicks in, and they begin to pull away. But don't get it wrong, you're not crazy, and you're not acting irrationally. Your ability to step back comes with a gift, a kind of skill you have sharpened over the years, the ability to recognize patterns in people's behavior. Most people don't walk away from a relationship after just one disappointment. But sometimes, after a while, you start to notice that what's happening isn't random. It's a pattern. You might realize that there's someone who only contacts you when they need something. At first, you think it's just a coincidence. But then it happens again the next month, and the month after that, the same thing. Or there's someone who praises you a lot, but every compliment comes with a request, a favor, some kind of obligation that you end up carrying. Or someone enters your life with intense attention, constant messages, big promises, and then suddenly they disappear, leaving you wondering what just happened. When these kinds of behaviors repeat over and over, you start to feel like you've seen this story before. And that feeling isn't just intuition. In psychology and neuroscience, researchers suggest that the human brain works like a prediction system. It constantly records patterns of behavior from the past in order to predict what might happen next. Some studies show that people who experienced emotional stress early in life often develop a stronger social alert system. The areas of the brain related to detecting danger signals and reading other people's emotional cues tend to react more quickly. What does that mean? It means that after years of observing, experiencing, and sometimes being disappointed, your brain has collected a huge amount of data about how people behave. So, when you see the same patterns repeating, apologies that never come with real change, relationships that only exist when you're the one giving, cycles of attention followed by disappearance, your brain starts making a prediction that if the story continues, the outcome probably won't be any different from before. And sometimes, the moment you recognize that pattern is the moment you decide to step out of the loop. Not because you're cold, but because you've learned how to listen to what your own experiences are trying to tell you. At this point, the voices around you start to rise again. Society begins to judge. They say, "You're building walls. You're locking yourself away. You're too extreme." But they're making a serious mistake by confusing two completely different things: boundaries and walls. Take a look at your life right now. Maybe you've stopped talking to 5 people, maybe 10, people who used to drain your energy. You no longer show up at meaningless social gatherings. But you still keep 1 or 2 people in your life, people you can sit with in silence without feeling uncomfortable, people you can call and cry to without being judged, relationships that are truly healthy and balanced. So, you're not broken at all. You're simply practicing a fundamental concept in psychology, setting personal boundaries. A wall is built from fear. A wall is blind. It blocks everyone without caring whether they are good or harmful. It traps you inside the darkness. But boundaries are different. Boundaries are like a door with a lock and a peephole. They are built from self-respect. Boundaries are selective. They allow you to open the door for people who bring sincerity and warmth into your life. At the same time, they keep toxic people outside, preventing them from entering and destroying your peaceful space. Letting someone leave your life doesn't mean you hate people in general. It simply means you love yourself enough to stop allowing anyone to dump their trash into your space. And once you set those boundaries, you begin to discover a beautiful world truly understand. Being alone does not mean being lonely. There is a big misconception that society places on us. People mix up two ideas, being alone and loneliness, but they are completely opposite states. Have you ever stood in the middle of a crowded party? Loud music, people laughing, glasses clinking everywhere. Yet, deep inside, you felt completely out of place. You're standing there, but no one truly sees you. That is true loneliness. Loneliness isn't when no one is around you. It's when you are surrounded by people who cannot connect with your soul. On the other hand, think about the moments when you sit alone in a quiet room. You make a cup of tea. You read a book. You work on something you enjoy or simply do nothing at all and stare out the window. Your phone stays silent. No one demands that you behave a certain way, and you feel a deep sense of peace filling your chest. That isn't loneliness. Research on solitude and self-determination theory shows a very clear difference. When being alone is a voluntary choice, it becomes a state called constructive solitude. This voluntary time alone is a powerful form of emotional detox. It helps you restore emotional energy after years of exhaustion. It strengthens self-awareness, allowing you to hear your inner voice without the noise of other people's opinions. Most importantly, it greatly reduces the social pressure and stress you once carried. You are not hiding in a dark corner. You are recharging your batteries in your own sacred space. So, let me tell you this. You are not running away. You are moving toward peace. But once your life becomes quieter, something else begins to happen. It's not that the world around you changes. It's the way you see it. Before, when someone hurt you, your first reaction was often to try to understand them. You wondered what they might be going through. You searched for reasons to explain their behavior. Maybe they were just tired. Maybe they were struggling. Maybe they didn't really mean it that way. So, you gave them more time, more chances, and more hope that things would eventually change. But after spending enough time in silence, something starts to shift. You no longer feel the need to explain people's behavior. You begin to notice a simple truth. People usually show you who they are more clearly than you think. Not through what they say, but through how they show up in your life, through how they treat your boundaries, and through whether they are truly there when you need them. This awakening doesn't make you cold. It simply makes you stop trying to fix things that were never your responsibility. And when you stop trying to force everything back to the way it was, the relationships in your life begin to reveal their true nature. Before we close this story, ask yourself a very simple question. Does having more people in your life really make you happier? Since childhood, we are often taught that the more friends and relationships we have, the more complete our lives will be. But as people grow older, many begin to realize a different truth. Not every relationship nourishes you. Some relationships make you feel seen, heard, and free to be yourself. But others make you constantly tense, constantly explaining yourself, constantly sacrificing your peace just to keep things fine. And over time, many people begin to understand something important. Life is not measured by the number of people around you, but by how safe you feel when you are with them. So, if today your circle is smaller than before, if your contact list is no longer full of names, but the people who remain are those who truly respect your boundaries, people who don't force you to explain your silence, people who make you feel lighter just by being around them, then maybe you didn't lose relationships at all. You simply removed the noise to keep what truly matters. Sometimes growing up isn't about meeting more new people. It's about learning to recognize who truly deserves to stay. So, if your circle today is smaller, but more peaceful, then you are probably doing the right thing. Keep protecting your peace. If you appreciate thoughtful and deep analyses like this, please subscribe to the channel and share the video to support it. Your support is the greatest motivation for me to keep exploring the deep mysteries of the human mind. I'm Apex, and I'll see you again in the next journey of discovery.